Hi, it's me, Jazzy. I'm back with another tech-related video, and today I figured it's about time we finally take a look at one of my old radios. I keep meaning to get around to taking a look at some of these, and I thought we'd make a start today with this lovely old Bush radio. This is an AM radio. It does medium wave and long wave, and it hasn't really done much since I've had it. Last time I powered it up was when I first got it, which was ages ago. It had really crackly pots and I couldn't get anything on it. There wasn't really much, not even any static coming out the speaker, so I suspect a few little issues to look into. Let's get this lovely old Bush over on the bench and take a look inside. Right, so I've been wanting to take a look at this for a while now. This is a classic radio. These Bush radios, they're iconic, this shape. They've even made replica, more modern versions. This is one of the original ones. I'm not quite sure of the age of this. One of its previous owners has added this little push switch. Looks like the sort of thing you'd find on your bedside light, to replace the on-off. It's all a bit grubby, this. The on-off was apparently not working. That's probably why they added this. Well, this is fine if it works. We've got our wave bands here. It's quite hard to see, the writing's worn off it. It says long wave, medium wave, and this button just about see 208. And we know what 208 was. Radio Luxembourg. It does have Luxembourg here. Luxembourg was on many frequencies, but the great 208 was the most famous. Okay, so the tuning, it's a little bit sticky here and there, and I think we're missing something here. Not too sure. Maybe there was something over that. Not too worried about that. I'm more worried about the functionality of it. I like old radios to look honest. You know, they've got a bit of history, they've been through a lot, and it's got there's like a little bit of damage there, but other than that, it's not bad at all. Oh, here we go. So this is a TR82DL, and battery operated 9 volt by Bush Radio Division. And to open, we need to go here. So let's have a look. Now, from what I remember, I did power this up. The person that sold it to me did say that it was working, but it was very crackly, and I think I powered it up when I first got it, and all of the pots are horrendous. Like, you can't even use it. If you press any switch or turn any pot, it's just awful, the noise you get from it. Now let's have a look in the back here. What have we got down here? Recommended replacement batteries are Everready PP9 or Drydex. Wow, there's a name I haven't heard in a long time. DT9 or Vidor. Wow, names from the past. It's a bit grimy in here. We can give it a bit of a clean out, but we've got Celestion speaker. I mean, you can see the mechanism. It's all going to need a bit of a clean up. We're going to clean the pots. We're going to clean the switches, and we can pair it up because we've got connections here, and we know now that it needs 9 volts, so we can power it up off the bench power supply and see how we get on. It does look like this has been replaced at some point. We might want to redo that, solder those, and a bit of decent heat shrink on there, just so it's a little bit better. Oh look, this is quite interesting. Here, look, radio license plate. Back in the early days of radio, you needed to have a radio license if you didn't have a TV license, I think. Or it may have been both, I'm not sure, I'm not overly sure. Little tiny bit before my time. Royalty's been paid on this apparatus pursuant to a license agreement with the grantors of the Broadcast Sound Receiver License, known as, is that A8S or ABS? I will make the caveat that I am no expert on vintage radios, but I enjoy vintage radios and I like collecting and working on them. I think it's quite the experience listening to anything on old radios like these. Where to begin then? Let's replace this because I'm not overly happy with this. Job number 1. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to unscrew this tab. So if I pull these wires out, it'll make it a lot easier for me working on them. Well, try not to lose the washer in the process. There we go. Right. Okay, that just makes life easier for me. I probably will just power it off my bench supply for now. I've no plans to power it on battery, but I think what I'm going to do, rather than deal with this horrible nasty tape from the 1970s, I'm just going to cut it, strip it, solder it and heat shrink it, because I just think it'll be a bit neater. This tape is like just sellotape by the look of it. I'm not an expert at working on vintage radios. I've worked on a few. I just love them. I just think they're great things. They're really nice things to have. I've got quite a few, and I did promise that I would start working my way through them on the channel. So this Bush one seems a good starting point. I've got quite a collection of Grundig radios. I love the Grundig radios. I have two that definitely need repair, and I have two that are completely untested. So we're going to take a look at those. I've got a couple of Grundig table radios. If you're not familiar with the concept of table radios, I will introduce you to that. So I've got a lot of little jobs here that I've been meaning to get to, but I haven't really had a lot of time. Now I have a little bit extra time now to be able to get to grips with more repairs. I really should order some more heat shrink, because I haven't got necessarily all the right colours in all the right sizes. I'm going to just use yellow because it's the only colour I've got in the right size. You'll have to forgive me for that, viewers. I'm just using what I've got at the moment. I will order some more. Let's have a go. I think we're good there. Right, it'd be nice if my hands didn't shake quite so much. There we go. I just think that's a little bit better than the random sellotape on the wire. I should imagine it was just twisted together inside. I'm not saying that's the best solder joint ever, but it'll do. It's better than what we had. Okay, now we're going to deal with this. I'm not overly sure what has happened there, but I just want to cut these. It's not, I don't think it's capped on tape or anything like that. I'm not going to get that in there, am I? No. Right, I'm going to have to resort to this one because I can't get my big clippers in there. See, I like these. These are my favourite wire strippers, but this does come in handy when you can't get those big ones into a tight space. Yeah, we're doing all right. Get that on there. Okay, I'll let that cool down for a minute before I try and put the heat shrink back on. So often I'm impatient to get the heat shrink on and the solder joint is still hot and I end up melting the end of the heat shrink before I should, which is awkward because then you have to redo it again. This didn't necessarily need doing, but I just felt like it just needed a little bit of a tidy up. So this is the wiring actually from that additional switch that they've put in on the top there. I mean, that's okay. It's like a period correct modification and it matches. Doesn't look out of place. Maybe that's just failed over the years. All right, let's bring in the little stripper nipper, the wire stripping monster. There we go. Goodness me. That is some tough wire to strip, but it's done it. Now that one's cooled down a bit. Let's get that bit of heat shrink on before I forget. Now there's probably radio experts out there watching this going, no, that's not the best way of doing it. And forgive me for that, but I'm merely a tinkerer of radios. I'm not a radio expert, but I know what I like. All right, let's tin those other ones. Some schools of thought say twist them before soldering, some say don't. I generally twist if I'm soldering. That's just me. All right, I think that's all right. Oh, it's certainly better than it was. Okay, so I think we're good. Get right in there. Okay. Well, it feels smoother already. Give it a good blast, because it was quite bad. And now switch cleaner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give these a good clean up. Give them a good old going over. Right, let me get some cotton buds. There's all sorts of yuckiness coming off of here, look. Alright, I think we're good. That looks and feels healthier than it did before. And these two are definitely healthier. Let's see if we can do anything with this. Oh, is it glued in? No. Held in by grime mostly. I guess as it's a British radio, it would be UK grime. Yeah, I know. I wonder if we might be able to just run some of this down inside. With this type of switch cleaner, you end up with more on your hands than you do on the radio. Does look like it's come off a 1960s table lamp though. Okay, so at least the wiring's looking a little bit neater now. I've got the little clip back in there. Now I'm going to turn my attention to these electrolytics. We've got two here with the date code of May 64. Pretty old. Oh no, we've got a little germanium transistor down here. Remember from when I did the transistor tester episode? I've got some of these OC71s. If that ever fails, I've got some spares. These two, let's check. And these look very suspicious. I've just pulled this out so I can see what it is, and it's a 100 microfarad electrolytic. These are really old, and I'm very suspicious of these. Right, so we'll check these with the LCR meter, and we'll see what we've got. So we've got one here. So these are supposed to be 8 microfarad. We've got 10.9. ESR's a little on the high side at 11 ohms. Now it might be, it's not always necessarily the best thing testing them in circuit though. It might give us an idea. I'm going to replace them anyway because they're really old. So we've got 10.4 microfarads and 8.1 ohms, not quite as bad. These look really old. I mean, it's an old radio, so I don't know what I expected, but 34 microfarads, 30 ohms. Now this one here, I don't know if I can get on this one, can I? Well, I can't very easily get in on that one, but I mean, it's a foregone conclusion that I'm going to replace those anyway. So these are pretty easy. I've got some in stock, new old stock. These are 8 microfarad, 12 volt. So I'm going to replace them with a 10 microfarad, 160 volt axial. I've got two of them here. These are new old stock, so they'll do the job. And then as for these babies, well, I'm going to use, oh, there you go. I'm going to use a couple of these Weimer 100 microfarad, 35 volts. These are new old stock. Because they're quite old, I've given the legs a good clean to give them a good chance. I'll tin these before I put them in, obviously, but I think they'll do the job nicely, and they're kind of period correct-ish. Right, so let's whiz these out first. There we go, that's one end. Hot. I do it every time, don't I? Right, so we've got to take note of the polarity of this. Now we've got to do the same with this end. I suspect this is not going to be quite as easy to get hold of, is it? There we go. Alright, there we go. Yeah, you can see very clearly there. 12 volt DC. May 64 is the date code on there. And these are Plessy. Okay. Now that's out. I'd just like to see, I'm going to replace it anyway, but I just want to see if it tests any better now it's out of circuit, because you never know, it might do. Yeah, it does actually test a little bit better out of circuit. It's still quite high ESR. All right, let's get a new one in. Now this is a little bit chunkier than the other one. Good, right, okay, let's get that soldered in. Now, let's see if we can get this one out. Should do this end first. There we go. So, okay, so that's got to go back on there, obviously. There we go. Beautiful. It's like extracting teeth. Let's see, does that one test any better? It may well test better now it's out of circuit, of course. There's always that. 12 microfarad, 7.3 ohms, so yeah, definitely worth replacing these. But you can see how they test differently in circuit to out of circuit. I could have lifted one of the legs, but I was going to replace it anyway, so let's get a fresh one in. Just for comparison, my fresh one tests at 9.1 microfarads, 1.4 ohms. This is new old stock, so it's not new, but it's not old. Right, now we've got to make sure we get this in the right way. Right, now these are quite considerably chunkier than what we took off. Trim that off a bit. Okay, what I'm going to do here is get this one, right, let's get that one back on first. And then we'll get this one on. Right, let's get this in then. Alright, well, that will do the job. Now, these ones are going to be a bit different kettle of fish, aren't they? I've got one here. I've already pulled this one out a little bit. I'm going to do this difficult one first. Save myself the easy one as a treat, because I'm going to have to lift this resistor off. Actually, possibly both these resistors off to get in there. So let's do that, shall we? Lift this resistor out of the way. There we go. Move that out of the way. So we've got this green wire and this resistor need to go back on there. But what that means is I can now get this to a position where I can release it, and I'm probably going to cut this one out. I think I most likely favour it to just cut this one. Right, we've got to note which way round this goes. I think it's fair to say this is not very good anymore. This is a Plessy electrolytic, 100 microfarad, 3 volt. Shall we see what this test says? 31 microfarads, bearing in mind this is supposed to be 100 microfarad, 31 microfarads, 27 ohms. I'd say that's no good. Let's scrap that out in favour of this, which is measuring 112 microfarads, 0.1 ohms. Fine, we're going to use that. It's old stock, new old stock. At which point does it stop becoming new? Oh, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Fine, now I've got to get these wires back on here. There's 2 wires and a resistor to go back on here. Right, that green wire's back on. Now I've just got to get this one back on the top. That's the second green one on. Now we just got to get that resistor back on there. Okay, right, that's that one done. One more to go. That's in, and we definitely got that in the right way round. Now we've got a wire here going to this tab here, which again I'm just going to cut that. Let's move this out of the way. Ah, right, okay. Oh, we've got another wire going in there. Right, we're going to have to just... There was a little debate over these caps, because you don't come across them very much. Now, after poking around a bit on the vintage radio forum, the general opinion is to replace these if you're in any doubt. I mean, the radio does work, but not very well. So I think in the spirit of trying to keep this radio working long time, I'm going to put these electrolytics in as planned, the replacement ones. And because I'm not so familiar with these red and black ones, I did find confirmation on the vintage radio forum from someone that worked for Plessy that red is indeed positive on these. So I needed confirmation, you see, that I had this in the right way round. I mean, my gut feeling said red would be positive, but when I took this one out, I noted that the red wire was going into the black end of the capacitor. So I can't remember if I actually tested this one. I think we tested the first one that I took out. This one's also 100 microfarad. This is a 12 volt though, that's a 3 volt, hence why this is a bit chunkier. 20 microfarads, 31 ohms, something like that. Yeah, it's had it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this bit of wire here because we don't need it. That was there because the Plessy didn't have a long enough reach. Okay, so I'm just going to go straight onto that. So I've bent this in a way that I can get that on there. Again, I don't need this wire now because I can go straight on this tab. I'll go under this red wire, I think. It's the easiest. Yeah, there we go. Right, I think we're good. Now, as you notice, these caps have got the positive end going to the chassis. As you can see there, and you can see on that one there, and that's because, like some of these old radios, this has positive ground to the chassis. As you can see, if I go on the positive terminal, the battery there, yeah, explains the unusual orientation of those caps. So I'm happy I've got all four in correctly. So it's time to find out. Here we go. Right, let's go for a power up. 9 volts on here. Beautiful. There we go. Ooh, very nice. That sounds more promising than it ever has done. Oh, here we go. Now there is quite a lot of interference in here, unfortunately, in the studio. There's a lot of equipment and computers running, so it's not the best place to try and pick up AM radio signals. Unfortunately, there's not so much on medium wave and long wave as there used to be. You used to get loads of stations. Now, not so much, unfortunately. Yeah, the older one here and there. Oh, wow. That's an interesting noise. Oh. There we go, we got something there. It goes quite loud. That's the most I've had out of this radio, like, ever. Just the fact that it's working. That's marvellous. I don't know what that is, but there's a few distant stations out there. Got something there, sounds like a sports radio or something. It's definitely picking stuff up. There's a lot of interference in here. In here is not a great place to try and pick up AM radio signals. Okay, well, I tell you what then, we'll hook up the E1 signal generator, put out a tone, see if we can pick that up, shall we? So, I've brought in the Advanced E1 here, which is a rather fantastic piece of equipment. One of my favourite bits of equipment, the Advanced E1. It looks fabulous. I'm going to try and pick up a tone from this. So, if I tune that to roughly 300 meters, medium wave, converting that to frequency, that is going to be just under 1 meg. So let's turn it on first of all, that would help. So we want to be looking for 1 meg, so 300k to 1000. on E. We're on E already, that's handy. Modulation on. If I go up to, where are we? Somewhere around here, I'm hoping we'll hear. There we go. Fantastic. It's not bad, is it? Pretty good. So there we go. I wonder if I can get it to pick up anything on long wave. Let's give it a go, shall we? So this is long wave here. So let's go to what, 1400? There we go. Yep. Picking up on long wave and medium wave. Unfortunately, an AM radio is not as useful as it used to be, as there's not so much to pick up these days. Although we could rig up some sort of short range AM transmitter like we did with the FM car transmitter before. But it's nice to know that with a little bit of love, we got the old Bush up and running. That's the first time I've had anything out of this radio since I've had it, and I've had it kicking around here for a few years. I just love the look of it, and how fabulous does it look with the Advanced E1 as well. It's the ideal piece of equipment for testing out vintage radios. So that's another one in my collection that's back up and running. What a fantastic thing. Good old Bush, eh? Well, it's great to see the old Bush up and running. I'm really happy with that. There's not a lot these days, unfortunately, on medium wave and long wave. Not like there used to be. Used to be loads of stations, but we could play around with maybe some sort of short range transmitter type of thing in the future. But it was great that it managed to pick up some signals, even here in the studio where there's loads of interference, and it was great to get the E1 out on the bench again for a little bit of testing with this old Bush radio. I've got plenty of other radios that we can take a look at, and I'll get a couple of my table radios down that I haven't tested yet, and we'll have a look at those in a future episode, have a look inside, see if they need a bit of a service and see if we can pick anything up on them. You never know. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, tinkering around with this old Bush radio. As always, massive thanks to everyone for watching, sharing, liking and subscribing, and big thanks to all of my YouTube and Patreon members. Don't forget you can support me on Patreon and buy me a coffee, which helps to support the channel and keeps me making more videos. I'll be back soon with another tech related video, but in the meantime, take care and I'll see you on the next one.